I was walking along just fine. To my right, I heard something. It sounded very heavy, and I was maybe 10 feet from it.
So we were coming from a racetrack over in Andrews, 12:30, 1 o'clock one morning. Coming down the road here.
Forests, mountains, and remote camps hide secrets no one can explain. Tonight, 6 unforgettable encounters expose what watches from the darkness. Fear lurks in every shadow, creatures that follow, vanish, and leave no trace. From Bigfoot lurking in the shadows to unearthly forces and impossible sightings, these stories push the limits of reality, leaving behind fear, awe, and questions that linger long after the night ends. From heavy footsteps in the night to eerie knocks and vanishing footprints, are these just legends, or is something truly watching from the darkness?
Sometimes they come here and get water.
My dad, knowing this, had been going up to that area for a couple weeks, actually, and he was finding footprint tracks up there, hair samples.
On DMAX UK, the search for Bigfoot takes BFRO investigators into the remote forests of southwest Washington, where sightings have long sparked curiosity. The team meets James at the spot of his encounter, where heavy footsteps suddenly approach from behind. He recalls a figure standing 8.5 to 9 feet tall, with shoulders nearly 4 feet wide, a presence unlike anything human. Could this trail be a regular crossing for Sasquatch? And is the team close to capturing proof of the legend?
Today, we're meeting James at the sighting location where he had his encounter. We want to see, is it a place where Sasquatches actually would come periodically?
As the sound of the footsteps approached closer, I knew whatever it was standing behind me right there at the top of the trail. It was impossibly large, approximately 8.5 to 9 feet tall, with shoulders spread approximately 4 feet wide.
The forest revealed a creature even larger than the one James had encountered. From over 100 yards away, it moved through the trees, each step shaking the ground with a deep, thudding rhythm. The sound of its footfalls carried a menacing weight, as if the very forest itself was warning anyone nearby. The memory of that night still sends chills through anyone who thinks about it, a haunting reminder of a presence that cannot be explained.
I saw one actually that was bigger than the one he saw, and when it walked around at over 100 yards away, I could hear its footfalls. Boom, boom, boom. It sounds like an elephant. When they are trying to intimidate you and they're stomping their feet as they walk, it's loud.
I think you for sure saw and heard a Sasquatch that night.
Wow, just makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck.
The team reached the Lewis River, where James's chilling sighting occurred, then moved upstream toward Lake Merwin, where every sound could travel for miles. The ridge to Amboy had a history of strange sightings, and tonight the forest was theirs alone. Closer to where mysterious vocalizations had echoed, every step carried tension as the team readied their strategies, hoping to provoke a response from whatever lurked unseen in the shadows.
This is where James's sighting happened, and I think that if we're going to do a night investigation here, we should move further upstream to this area near Lake Merwin. Lake Merwin would have excellent listening conditions. Our broadcast would be able to be heard for miles.
Oh yeah, because they bounce right off the lake.
Yeah, and this ridge between Lake Merwin and Amboy to the south actually has a number of sightings on it.
We have the place to ourselves, basically.
And you know, this is a lot closer to where we were the other night when we heard the vocalizations.
Also, water investigations are a neat opportunity to do some creative Bigfooting. I've got a few tricks up my sleeve. I'd like to give it a shot here.
The team readied themselves as the lake carried their calls back with deep, haunting echoes. From nearly 200 feet offshore, 2 heat signatures appeared along the distant shoreline. Movement too vague to make out, but impossible to ignore. Without hesitation, they steered toward shore, marking a coordinate and calling in backup. As they drew closer, the stretch of beach came into view, the same spot where strange activity had been reported before. Something unseen waited in the shadows, and the night was about to reveal it.
Hey, Cliff, are you out of the boat on the shore right now?
No, we're about 200 feet from shore in the lake.
Look to your left down the shoreline. There's just 2 hot spots on the shoreline.
I don't see anything, but hold on.
It could be elk, it could be deer, it could be a Bigfoot. I don't know. They were on the beach. It's just too far away for this thing to get any detail.
Let's get over there and find out.
All right, Bo, you said it was ahead of us to the left. We're going to push in the shore and take a GPS coordinate. I'll get that to you, and you meet us over there, all right?
Well, let's double time it over there.
The team anticipated where a Sasquatch might move, knowing higher ground offered a strategic vantage. An open clearing caught their attention, an ideal spot to send a call into the forest. When the sound echoed back, it wasn't a reflection of their own voice. Something deep in the shadows had answered, sharp and deliberate. Through radios, the team confirmed the response, and a tense excitement rippled through the group. The forest felt alive, every rustle and shadow charged with anticipation. Whatever was out there had made its presence unmistakably clear.
I'd like to do a call. Renee and Cliff, do you copy? I'm gonna do a howl. Oh boy.
Wait, that's not an echo.
That wasn't an echo.
From a high vantage point, the team scanned the area, senses on edge. Movements in the forest suggested the creatures might be closing in. Cliff listened intently. One of the team insisted it wasn't just an echo. Judging by his tone, he had to be taken seriously. Team members considered their own position. What sounded like a reflection of sound from their spot could easily differ from what was happening elsewhere. Every step, every rustle in the trees carried weight. The possibility of something unseen moving closer made the tension nearly tangible. In the silent pause that followed, the forest seemed to hold its breath.
That's the echo. I gotta believe him.
No, I'm with you. To what I heard from our location, to me, it was no doubt an echo, but they could be in a different position. They could be hearing something else.
Absolutely.
Whoa, come over here.
What'd you find?
Check it out, dude. That sound we heard, it sounded like it was coming from down in there. I thought maybe there was some trailer down in there, maybe some people, but there's nothing in between here and the lake except trees and a steep hillside.
I mean, it was definitely came from that direction.
It came from that direction, absolutely.
As the night deepened, the forest held its secrets close. Shadows shifted, echoes answered calls, and unseen footsteps seemed to draw closer. Every rustle and thud suggested a presence just beyond sight, something massive, intelligent, and impossible to ignore. Could the team be standing on the edge of proof, or would the forest keep its legendary inhabitant hidden once more? On Small Town Monsters, we investigate a chilling roadside encounter that unfolded in the early hours of the morning. Just after midnight, witnesses Jonathan Cope and Kenny Cope were driving home from a racetrack in Andrews when something on a bridge ahead forced their attention. In the headlights, they saw a figure crouched low, clutching something, an image so unnatural it instantly set off alarm bells. What they witnessed next still defies explanation.
So we were coming from a racetrack over in Andrews, 12:30, 1 o'clock one morning, coming down the road here, and I was probably going over the speed limit, honestly, so couldn't get slowed down quick enough. But when we came across the bridge, I looked here and I seen something kind of hunkered down, kind of like this, but it was holding something, and it was pink. What it was holding was pink, and that's actually what made me notice it.
Kenny Cope witnessed the same thing. The conditions were rough, dark, with a light drizzle that blurred the edges of the road. As they crossed the bridge, the figure would have gone unnoticed, if not for one striking detail. Clutched in its hands was something vivid, almost fluorescent pink, bright and unnatural, impossible to ignore even in the dim light.
Same thing he did. We was coming through there, and it was dark, but kind of drizzly, not raining, just drizzling. And we come across the bridge, and I wouldn't have seen it if it hadn't been for that fluorescent. It was like fluorescent pink, kind of like that pink is on that ribbon right there.
From where they watched, it crouched unnaturally low, knees almost grazing the ground. In its hands was something strange. It pressed it tightly under its chin, head bowed, fingers gripping it as if trying to keep it hidden from the world. Every movement was deliberate, tense, and quietly menacing, leaving the witnesses frozen in a mix of fear and disbelief.
To me, it was more strapped lower down. Its knees were lower down the way I took it. And it was like a pink plastic tube. It had it up and under its chin with its head down under it with its hands wrapped around it, like it was trying to hide.
At first, they thought they had seen just an ordinary figure, but the next day, seeing it again shattered that assumption. It towered over them in a way that felt impossible, its head and shoulders looming in the dim light. The sheer presence of it left them frozen, a chilling reminder that whatever they had encountered was far beyond anything they expected.
Well, like I was saying, I always thought this was maybe 4 or 5 foot high until we come out the next day.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a lot taller than I thought it was.
Yeah.
And its head and shoulders was somewhere right around here. I mean, it was way up on it.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize this was that tall.
What they saw matched an image one of them had found online, though its origin was uncertain, maybe something else entirely. The creature's fur was patchy, deep, hanging in uneven clumps. Sticks, leaves, and debris clung to it, as if it had emerged straight from the forest floor. And all of this unfolded in the dead of night, where darkness swallowed every detail and made the encounter even more chilling.
I don't know where that came from.
Okay.
It may be AI, I don't know, but I found it on the internet, and that's what it looked like.
Did it have the same kind of mangy?
Yes,
Really?
mangy, except it was a reddish brown, and the hair was like that, coming down over the mangy. It was, what I seen, it was sticks and leaves and stuff stuck to it.
Yeah, it's nighttime, right? Is it dark? How dark?
Yeah, it's dark. And I was seeing it off the headlight.
Catching this thing? Yeah, in the headlights, okay.
Yeah. Right.
The real shock came the next morning. The imprints left behind in the ground were unlike anything they had expected, unnervingly precise. They had to position themselves just to fit their feet into the prints, a chilling reminder that whatever had passed through here was far from ordinary.
When I seen it, and what really shocked me is when we came out here the next morning was the imprints in the ground and how wide they were. Like, you know, I was having to stand like this to get in the feet prints.
And then where its knees, what I think was the knees, he stood here and had to be way over here to reach it.
Its fur hung in tangled, wavy clumps over its shoulders, rough and wild along its back, giving it a savage, untamed appearance. In the dim, shadowed forest, it seemed to blend with the darkness, every movement deliberate and unsettling, as if it was watching, waiting, and aware of every eye on it.
It was a dark reddish, brownish color.
Okay. What time of year is this again?
Relatively around this time.
Same time of year.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit before that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Its hair, where it come down over its shoulders, like in this picture,
Yeah.
its hair was wavy and a lighter color.
Okay.
A lighter color than the hair on its body.
Right.
And it was real mangy looking in the back. I mean, just about like that.
Yeah.
Even now, every time he passes through the area, he can't help but scan the shadows, hoping, yet wary, of seeing it again. The memory lingers, drawing him back, as if the forest itself is keeping secrets just out of reach. With other witnesses confirming similar encounters, the story takes on an eerie weight, a rare alignment that makes the unexplained feel almost undeniable, and leaves anyone listening questioning what might still be out there, watching from the dark. On Travel Channel, every journey tells a story, and this one is deeply personal. Michael Freeman ventures into the wilderness, following the footsteps of his father, Paul Freeman, whose life changed forever in 1982. That first encounter with a legendary creature sparked a 15-year obsession. Now, Michael retraces the same rugged terrain, asking the question that started it all. What truly happened here? And is it still out there? Paul Freeman spent long stretches in these woods, convinced the land itself whispered secrets.
My name is Michael Freeman. Paul Freeman is my dad in 1982. That's when he had his first encounter with Bigfoot. And that kind of set off a 15-year obsession, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, go around this bush here, see what's going on here.
Each trip revealed new clues, fresh imprints, unusual traces, signs of deliberate movement. He filmed every discovery, building a growing archive of unanswered questions. Yet the source remained elusive. Clear signs appeared, then silence. Whatever lurked seemed to watch from just beyond view.
Now, Deduck Spring, where this video was taken, was one of the viable water sources that was still being used by animals.
Sometimes they come here and get water.
My dad, knowing this, had been going up to that area for a couple weeks, actually, and he was finding footprint tracks up there, hair samples. He had been taking his camera. He was filming the collection of evidence.
Wow, looks like he's pretty fresh.
He would find stuff, but he would never have any sightings. And he would go back, the next day or the day after, and the same thing would happen over and over.
Yeah, he's going back up the road, come down the road.
Paranormal researcher Rosemary Ellen Guiley notes that Paul Freeman's legacy comes from evidence that could be examined, not debated. The footprint casts he recovered showed fine ridge patterns.
The valuable thing that Paul Freeman contributed to the field really came from his casts of footprints, and they have been examined by experts. He was able to capture what are called dermal ridges in his casts. This is an indication of striations in the skin.
Can't see much up through here. I hear the brush popping and stuff. Oh, there he goes.
Consistent with skin texture, setting them apart from ordinary tracks. Following the trail deeper, Freeman documented every step, the footprints leading him from certainty toward the unknown. He had seen strange things before, but nothing like this night. As darkness fell, Paul Freeman pushed deeper, following sounds that felt deliberate. These woods held a long history of mystery, and now they seemed anything but empty. Whatever moved beyond the brush did so with purpose, turning a routine investigation into a moment that would haunt him long after he returned.
He was pale in color. You could tell that something had upset him and something had bothered him.
Oh, God.
It's the only time in my life, including the day that he died, that I ever saw my dad scared of anything. And that right there, to me, I don't have to see one. That's the only proof I'll ever need for the existence of this animal, just knowing my dad and how that affected him.
The figure moved with fluid, instinctive grace. Nothing stiff, nothing forced. Its size and proportions were disturbingly consistent, impossible to fake. Later, those closest to Paul spoke not of what he saw, but how it changed him. A man known for strength and fearlessness, someone untouchable to his son, was left visibly shaken. For the family, that reaction mattered more than any photo or footage.
People can be skeptical, but you cannot deny the impact that these sightings have had on the people who saw the activity.
What can you say? Your dad comes home and he's got something like this on video, and you watch it and you rewatch it and then you watch it again and you say, well, that's not a bear. It's not a man. It's nothing I've ever seen. And yeah, it was exciting. It was an exciting time.
Oh, there he goes.
Whatever Paul encountered broke the image of invincibility, and that was proof enough. In the shadows, something moves. Tall, upright, impossibly still. Its coat is thick and wild, unlike any known animal. The camera rises slowly, revealing a presence that seems aware of its observer. A head shifts with quiet intention. Every subtle movement hints at intelligence, patience, and a power beyond comprehension. Alive, watching, refusing to reveal itself fully.
This is probably the most dynamic Bigfoot footage that I've ever seen.
The movements of this creature look very natural.
Doesn't look like a man in a suit. The height looks right, the weight looks right. I feel like this would be difficult for a man to hoax all on his own and the word not get out.
Oh, God. I hear my heart beating 40 miles an hour.
I believe that he saw Bigfoot. I know my dad. I grew up with my dad. I know what kind of person he is.
The figure had the unmistakable hallmarks of Bigfoot. towering, primate-like, with a broad, dome-shaped head and massive frame. Beneath the dense fur, a lighter area hinted at a bare chest or hands held before it, adding an uncanny awareness to the encounter. The evidence was undeniable. Not a hoax, not a story from the past. Something still moves through these mountains.
She frightened my dad, who I saw as being Superman, basically. You know, growing up, big guy, tough guy, brave guy, someone who wasn't afraid of any man or beast, you know, on this earth, to actually be rattled and scared by something. I don't need any more proof than that.
Gotta be tracks here somewhere in this road. Oh, here's one.
For somebody to devote their whole life to a field like Bigfoot searching and squatching, to finally get something on camera is a huge deal.
Yeah, they've been all over this in here.
An elusive presence known only as Bigfoot. Witnessing it, even briefly, changes everything, leaving a mark that can never be forgotten. After decades of footprints, fleeting glimpses, and undeniable encounters, the forest keeps its secrets. The question isn't whether Bigfoot exists, it's whether anyone can face what's out there and return unchanged. Will Michael Freeman uncover the truth? Animal Planet follows the team back into coastal Georgia, where reports of unexplained sightings surround the restricted lands of Fort Stewart Army Base. As the investigation begins, the calm is suddenly broken. A large disturbance moves through the nearby water, slow, powerful, and impossible to ignore. The team freezes, listening as something unseen shifts just beyond the shoreline. Whatever made that sound is close, and its presence suggests they are no longer alone.
Whoa, what was that? Did you hear that?
Heard something moving over there, yeah.
What the heck is that?
The team prepares to initiate a series of calls, carefully positioning themselves along the edge of the marsh. Moments earlier, Matt and his partner detected something large moving through the reeds. Heavy, deliberate, and unseen. Visibility is limited, forcing them to rely entirely on sound. As the calls echo across the wetlands, the group falls silent, listening closely for any response. Whatever stirred the marsh may still be nearby, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself.
We're looking over the river now. It's really wide. It's kind of an estuary here. There's some islands in front of us, so we're gonna do a few calls.
Perfect, you guys are in a great spot. Matt and I just heard something big moving through the marsh. We've got ourselves out here. Matt can't see anything. So we're gonna listen to your calls, see if anything else happens.
The team pressed onward, venturing toward new ground. The property had seemed promising, bordering Fort Stewart, an area steeped in reports of strange sightings. Thick woods, hidden marshes, and shadowed estuaries offered perfect cover for something large, something unseen. The crew turned toward town, hoping that local witnesses might finally lead them to the secrets the forest refused to reveal. The hunt was far from over.
We took a guess with this property. It was a good guess, though, because the property is adjacent to Fort Stewart, which does have a lot of sightings. And out here, there is a lot of marshes and estuaries and thick woods where a Sasquatch could hide. But despite good Sasquatch territory, this location just didn't pan out tonight. So now we're headed into town hall, and hopefully there we'll get some good witnesses who will bring us to some better spots.
The BFRO team welcomed the crowd in Georgia, expressing their gratitude for everyone who came out. They paid special tribute to those currently serving in the armed forces, as well as veterans who had served in the past. For the few who had encountered the legendary Bigfoot, the team offered a salute, acknowledging their bravery and the extraordinary experiences they had witnessed.
Hello, Georgia.
And thank you very much for coming out. We'd like to extend a special welcome to those people who are either currently serving in the armed forces or have done so in the past. For those about to squatch, we salute you.
Who saw one? Who saw Bigfoot?
Brian recalled an experience from 2007, one that still sent chills down his spine. He and his wife had decided to ride their four-wheelers through the night, stopping in a remote clearing for a few minutes of rest. Almost immediately, strange sounds began to surround them. Heavy thuds, like massive rocks or fallen timber, echoed through the darkness. Something moved through the nearby water, deliberate and powerful, yet there were no houses, no people, nothing for miles around. The isolation made the presence all the more terrifying.
My name is Brian. I had an experience in 2007. Me and my wife decided we was going to ride four-wheelers throughout the night. So we pulled off, sat there about 5 minutes. Stuff started coming down around us. It sounded like big rocks, big pieces of wood. You could hear something walking through the water. And there's no houses anywhere around her.
Another terrifying story comes from a girl who thought she was just taking a walk through the woods, never imagining a simple walk through the woods could turn into a nightmare. The night was quiet, too quiet, until a heavy, dragging sound came from her right, just 10 feet away. Her heart pounded as she clutched the cross around her neck and dared a glance back. And there it was, its head eerily following her, moving with a cold, relentless stare. Fear rooted her to the spot, every instinct screaming to run.
I was walking along just fine. To my right, I heard something. It sounded very heavy, and I was maybe 10 feet from it. I had a cross around my neck. I grabbed it. I looked back one time, and when I looked back, its head was just following me.
This incident happened in the spring of 2006. She spotted a figure on the right side of the road, dark brown, shaggy, moving with an eerie, unnatural gait as it began to cross in front of her. Despite holding 2 degrees in biology and years of field research, she had never seen anything like it. Panic surged through her, heart pounding, desperate to get past it. Fear gripped her like a vice, every second stretching into eternity.
2006. I saw a figure on the right-hand side of the road. It was very dark brown, very shaggy. It started to cross the road. I actually have 2 degrees in biology, and I've done a lot of field research, and I've never seen anything like this before. I thought, just drive, just drive, just drive, just drive, just drive. I just wanted to get past it. I was so scared.
Heavy footsteps echoed behind him, followed by a guttural roar that froze him in place.
All of a sudden, I heard this just roar.
A piercing whoop rang out moments later, cutting through the darkness.
About a few minutes later, I heard a whoop.
He turned toward the property inland. Dense forests, swamps, and a winding river stretching for miles. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound a warning. The night had only just begun. The darkness pressed in from all sides, and then it came, a sound unlike anything they had ever heard. It was sharp, sudden, almost intelligent, slicing through the silence of the night. "Something's out there," someone whispered, hearts racing.
Did you hear that? Yeah, I think so. That sounded like knocks.
Every instinct screamed to run, but the forest seemed to hold them in place, daring them to uncover its secret. What lurked in the shadows, shifting just beyond their vision? And in these haunted Georgia woods, will anyone ever uncover the dark, hidden secrets that seem to watch, waiting from the edges of the trees? On Oregon Public Broadcasting, the search for Bigfoot is examined through a very different lens, one that moves beyond cameras, traps, and expeditions. While countless films and docuseries portray hunters combing forests in hopes of capturing or proving the creature's existence, Indigenous voices from the Pacific Northwest offer a deeper perspective. To them, Bigfoot is not something to be found but a spiritual presence woven into ancestral stories, cultural memory, and everyday life. Rather than a myth to chase, Bigfoot is a living idea, respected, remembered, and quietly acknowledged across generations.
It's interesting to see all of these searching for Bigfoot films, documentaries, docuseries, where they're literally out there looking to find Bigfoot, capture him. I don't really know what they're expecting to do. They'll never find him because Bigfoot is spirit. Being a Native person, especially from the Northwest, Bigfoot is in all of our stories. Bigfoot is thought about, considered almost weekly in people's lives, almost daily.
No one anticipated that a piece would be created for Bigfoot. Yet, as the idea took shape, certain elements felt inevitable. Shells intertwined into the design, accents of raw wood, and a cloak of the darkest hues. Bigfoot had always held a fascination, glimpses caught here and there, fleeting, unconfirmed, and always referred to as he, though no one could truly know if it was male or female. Memories of Pearson Creek lingered vividly, echoes of that distant call piercing the stillness, a place disturbed, and everyone knew Bigfoot did not welcome such intrusions. The forest seemed alive, watching, waiting.
Never expected that I would be creating piece for Bigfoot. And so when I'm thinking about this dress, I knew it needed to have shells. I knew it needed to have wood on it. I knew it needed to be a dark, dark color.
I've always liked Bigfoot. I've seen him a couple times. And here we say he, because it really can't see a gender, so we don't know if we're seeing a he or a she.
Remember when we heard Bigfoot up at Pearson Creek?
Well, there was logging going on up there, and they do not like.
Whenever someone ventures into the forest searching for Bigfoot, it is almost always white men leading the way. Rarely do they glimpse the creature itself. But the forest has a way of revealing other things, hidden fears, forgotten memories, pieces of themselves they never expected to confront. Every snapped twig, every shadow shifting in the undergrowth seems to watch them back. In the hunt for a legend, they often find something far more unsettling, the quiet truths that the wilderness keeps for itself.
Destructive stuff to some of their equipment.
Every time I've heard of somebody looking for Bigfoot, well, it's mostly white men, they never find Bigfoot, but what they do find out is a lot about themselves.
That's true.
For native residents, they have always seen him more than a legend, as part of the family, a shadow among the trees, quiet, yet ever present. Generations have coexisted with him, feeling his presence without needing proof. Some may doubt his existence, but those who know the forests understand, he has walked these lands for centuries, unseen, yet never absent, a living secret of the wilderness.
I think the way we view him is that he's like family. And I think that we have coexisted with him for a long time. It makes me think of why people might say Sasquatch isn't real, and it's like, that's clearly up to you, and you can believe the way you want to believe, but I've always believed that this is definitely something that has lived here for a long time.
In the world beyond the mainstream, the question isn't whether Sasquatch exists. For native people, that is never the point. Their stories, passed down through generations, carry a knowledge older than any map or record. These encounters are vivid, profound, and undeniable. Reminders that the unseen still moves among them. Every rustle in the trees, every shadow in the twilight whispers the truth. They are part of a larger mystery that refuses to be solved.
You look at the larger mainstream, really it comes down to an issue of whether or not you believe in Sasquatch. For Native people, that's not the issue. Our oral traditions and our oral history are actually a kind of knowledge system. Our people will continue to have these kinds of experiences, as profound as they are. And that experience just tells us that we are still a part of this greater mystery.
If Bigfoot has quietly walked these forests for generations, witnessed only in fleeting shadows, whispered in stories, and felt more than seen, then what does it truly mean to encounter him? Is he a spirit of the wilderness, a mirror to our own fears, or something far older? Story 4. Meet Doug Morrison on Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed, a lifelong Bigfoot enthusiast from Reedsport, Oregon, whose fascination with the legend began when he was a kid. Inspired by the famous Patterson-Gimlin film and his first Bigfoot book, Doug grew up believing the truth might be hiding deep in the forests. Years later, while hunting alone in the wilderness, that belief was put to the test when slow, heavy footsteps followed him along the tree line, moving when he moved, stopping when he stopped. At the time, Doug didn't think much of it.
I'm Doug Morrison. I live in Reedsport, Oregon. I've been into Bigfoot since I was a young kid. I saw the Patterson-Gimlin film when I was 7. I read my first book on Bigfoot when I was 7, and I've been into the Bigfoot TV shows and read books about it and stuff like that ever since I was a kid. I have had sounds when I was out hunting of something like in the tree lines that sounded like it was walking alongside of you, and if you stop, it would stop, but I'd never acquainted it to being a Bigfoot.
The night was unnaturally still. Each rustle of leaves or snapping twig amplified in the darkness. Doug and his wife lay in the open field beneath a bright moon, their small cocker spaniel suddenly stiffening, growling, and staring toward the tree line along the Satsa River. He swept his flashlight across the woods. Nothing moved. Yet the dog's agitation grew, and the calm no longer felt safe. Whatever was out there, it was watching, and it didn't want to be seen.
So while we were laying in the field looking at the stars, we had a small dog with us. He was a little cocker spaniel. And he started growling and showing his teeth, and his hackles went up, and he was pointing towards the Sayusla River in the woods there. And I had a flashlight with me, and I'd shine the flashlight around and did not see anything. There were no animals or anything that we could see. And he was getting a little more agitated, and it made my wife feel kind of creepy, so she asked if we could go back.
Doug and his wife returned to camp, and she decided to head to bed, slipping into the tent for the night. He stayed behind, settling by the campfire with a beer, enjoying the quiet while his back faced the Satsa River. Then came a sudden loud splash from the water behind him. At first, he thought it might have been a fish, or some animal leaping into the river. Grabbing his flashlight, he shined it across the surface, scanning for movement. Ripples danced on the water, but nothing else appeared. Still, something about the sound lingered in the air, echoing through the dark, and the river felt far less calm than before.
She decided to go to bed, and so she went into the tent and went to bed, and I sat out at the campfire to have a beer and just kind of kick back by the campfire. And while I was at the camp, sitting there, I had my back to the river. There was a large splash that happened in the river right behind it, where I was sitting. And I thought maybe an animal had jumped into the water, or maybe a fish jumped or something. So I went to take a look and see what it was, shine my light on the water, and I could see the ripples on the water, but I didn't see anything else out of the ordinary. So I felt it must have been a fish or something, so I went and sat back down, and about 3 to 5 minutes later, it did it again.
A loud splash erupted from the river behind Doug, followed by the sharp clink of rocks underwater. At first, he thought it was just pranksters tossing stones. He called out, laughed, and hid in the bushes, waiting. For minutes passed. Nothing moved. No one laughed. Just the river, silent under the moon. Shaken, Doug finally returned to the tent. Sleep felt safer, but that splash stayed with him long after the night went dark.
And it was followed by the sound of rocks clinking together, like it was underwater, which led me to believe something threw a large rock. So I thought maybe some kids were messing with us, so I yelled out that it was very funny, haha, you got me type of thing, and I hid in the bush that was right there to see if I could catch them doing it again. And I sat there for about 45 minutes and nothing else happened. At that point, I figured, you know what, it's getting late, time to go to bed. So I went and got in the tent and went to sleep.
As the last glow of light vanished from the tent, a terrifying sound shattered the night. Something right outside let out a scream that seemed to come from the very bones. It started deep and guttural, vibrating through the air like a warning, then surged into a piercing, high-pitched wail that echoed across the campsite. Every instinct screamed at Doug to move, yet he couldn't tear his eyes away. For a long, frozen moment, the forest itself seemed alive, watching, and whatever had made that sound wanted him to know it was there.
The tent, and just as that light went away from the tent, something right outside the tent screamed, and it was the most ungodly sound I've ever heard in my life. The scream started as a very low guttural sound that it reverberated inside your body. It made your insides shake. And it was a long moaning sound that went from a low pitch all the way to a very high screaming pitch and then lowered back down.
He stepped out into the quiet of the campsite, scanning for any sign of disturbance. In the soft sand, he spotted impressions. Not clear footprints, just shallow craters pressed into the earth. About 20 feet from the tent, a large branch caught his eye. Roughly 6 feet high and thick, it had been snapped at the base and twisted around itself, the sound of the break still echoing in his mind. Around the nearby trees, the underbrush had been flattened, smashed down by something impossible to identify. Whatever had passed through the campsite had left its mark, but Doug had no idea what it could have been.
And I went out and looked around the camp to see if anything had been disturbed, and you could see footprints in the sand, but it wasn't defined. It was just a crater in the sand. And what I did find was about 20 feet from the tent, a branch that was probably 2 inches in diameter. It was about 6 feet high, had been broken right at the base of the tree, and it had been twisted around 2 times. It made what they call a green stick break. And I looked around that area, and the salal that was around the trees had been smashed down, but by what, I couldn't tell you.
The question of what had passed through the area that night remains unanswered. Were the footprints and broken branches the work of an animal, or something far stranger that had been watching them? They may have returned to safety, but the memory of that scream, the splash in the river, and the shadows in the trees will linger long in their minds. D-Max UK takes us deep into the Canadian Rockies, a wilderness so vast, even the wind seems to whisper secrets. The team traveled to the remote eastern slopes to examine chilling footage captured by Todd Standing. Short, blurry. Some say it shows Bigfoot. Others aren't convinced. Out here, every tree could hide a watcher. Every sound could be a warning. One question remains. What really lurks just beyond the camera's gaze?
I saw this particular video several years back. Todd says his video shows a Bigfoot, but the video is very short and you don't see much of the creature. Some Bigfoot researchers believe this is a hoax.
Todd Standing's name divides the Bigfoot community, but the footage alone doesn't tell the whole story. The site is remote, dangerous, a place where hidden threats lurk behind every tree. Todd guides the team to a nearby location, one that mirrors the original encounter. Every step feels heavier, every sound sharper. It's as if the forest itself is watching, and the shadows move on their own. The team scouted the area, convinced this could be a Bigfoot hotspot. They spotted 3 sentinels, watchers who monitor the main group and alert them to intruders. The plan: position themselves behind one and capture it on camera. But they didn't expect the group's protective instinct. And then, the camera caught it. Something massive, a large male creature watching from the shadows.
My crew and I scouted out this area as a potential Bigfoot hotspot, I guess you call it. As most people know for Bigfoot, they're nocturnal. And we found 3 day watchers, as we call them, that watch over the main group. And so we know when they become alerted to your presence, they move back to the main group. And so what we were doing is we were trying to get as close as we could behind a day watcher. So when she would come back to the main group, she would have to come across this rock face, and that's when we were going to videotape her.
He stood briefly, letting the female day watcher pass. Then, he melted back into the shadows. Silently, he followed her toward the main group. Every movement deliberate, controlled. Fear surged through the team. He was enormous, a true beast of the wilderness. Around them, the forest seemed alive.
Something we didn't anticipate was when the whole group is alerted to your presence, they don't just ditch the day watchers, they come back and make sure they're safe. And I believe that was a large male in the video. And what he was most likely doing is standing up to let the day watcher, the female, come by. And then he got back down and he followed her back to the main group. I started to feel a lot of fear at that point because he was enormous. He was beastly huge. It made me scared. I was afraid.
Every rustle, every shadow, unseen danger lurking everywhere. After hearing Todd's story, Cliff felt a chill down his spine. During the day, when the Sasquatch rests, Todd realized something terrifying. He hadn't just disturbed them, he may have put the entire family on alert. Something massive, something intelligent. In this wilderness, every shadow could hide eyes. Every rustle could mean they're not alone.
Todd's story makes a lot of sense in that it supports a theory that Sasquatches are nocturnal. Todd suggests that during the day when the Sasquatches are sleeping, they set out sentinels or watchers to make sure that their family group is safe. Todd thinks on this day he disturbed not just the watcher but the entire family group. That could very well be possible.
Ranai replayed the scene again and again. Why did it squat, then vanish? Why didn't it approach? Had someone scared it off? Questions swirled heavier with each replay. One thought lingered. What really happened in those shadows?
It squats down and it's out of sight. Why don't you go up there? Why don't you throw a rock? Why don't you have the guy that's standing next to you, you stand there, have somebody climb up there, flush the animal out? I mean, what happened to it?
The team crouched beside Bobo, guiding him with care. Bobo mirrored Todd's movements from the original sighting, every motion precise. As they paused, Todd felt the forest holding its breath. Memories of that day crept back. It was as if the shadows themselves were watching. Bobo wanted to see how he measured up. The difference was staggering. He looked almost fragile. The Sasquatch was massive, thicker, broader. Its presence impossible to ignore. Every shadow, every movement. This wasn't just big. It was otherworldly.
All right, let's see how this compares. I want to see how I look compared to the actual Squatch. Okay, well, it's way wider than I am. I mean, look how narrow I am compared to it. That thing's huge. That thing is just way, way thicker and bulkier than I am, way wider. Not human. Watching the videos side by side, the subject in Todd's video looks a lot broader than I do. I think it's real.
Even before seeing Todd's footage, the BRO had collected countless sightings from this wilderness. Experiencing it firsthand, the area felt alive, dark, untamed, and uneasy. Perfect for their first night of shadows. Every movement, every sound. Something was watching, waiting. The terror comes from the unknown. Todd's encounter revealed something massive, unseen, impossible to explain. The quiet forest became a place of looming danger. Every shadow, every sound, a potential threat, a chilling reminder. No matter how prepared you are, something could always be watching from the darkness. The YouTube channel Exploring with Angelo is known for venturing into some of the most haunted and mysterious locations. But for this journey, Angelo returned to a place that has long sent shivers down his spine, the so-called satanic cult ritual forest. On a moonlit evening, he stepped back into the dense woods, where rumors of cult activity and restless spirits linger. The forest was described as dark and foreboding, perfect for a night of investigation, yet even Angelo couldn't predict just how chilling and unpredictable the night would become.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to a brand new adventure. New adventure, old place. We are back at what we've been calling the Satanic Cult Ritual Forest for a very specific reason. We genuinely believe that there is a cult coming out to these woods, and we're back. I've not been back here in quite some time. I think it's been probably about 2 months. This place gets hectic. Not only is there likely a cult coming out here, but this place is also extremely haunted.
Something shifted in the shadows of the forest. Angelo guessed it was probably just an ordinary animal, though the woods seemed to whisper otherwise. He had a short hike ahead to reach their usual camp spot, navigating the uneven ground with cautious steps. Thankfully, the forest wasn't as muddy as usual, though past visits had turned the trek into a slippery challenge. Even in these familiar surroundings, the night held an unpredictable edge, as if the forest itself was watching.
Something just moved out there. Okay, probably just a deer or something, but we got a bit of a hike to go. Not too far, but we're gonna go back to our usual camp spot, I suppose. And at least it's not super muddy. Usually when we come here, it is ridiculously muddy in some spots.
The moment sent a chill down Angelo's spine. A sound had come from behind, subtle yet unmistakable, and for a brief second, it felt as though someone, or something, was right there, just out of sight. Shaking off the unease, he pressed onward, each step forward deepening the sense that the forest was far from empty.
That was creepy. I heard something back there, but it also kind of felt almost as if like someone was behind me for a second there. Hello?
A shadow flickered at Angelo's side, just for a moment, enough to make him question what he'd seen. A soft, haunting whistle drifted through the trees, carrying with it a chill that seemed to seep into the bones. Then, from somewhere deeper in the darkness, movement stirred, slow, deliberate, and unmistakable, reminding him that something unseen was watching, waiting.
That was weird. I thought I saw like a animal, like literally right off to my left, but I think it was just a shadow. I swear I just heard like a whistle or something.
The night air was still, heavy with the scent of dried leaves ready to ignite. For a heartbeat, Angelo felt an unsettling presence behind him, something moving just out of sight. A faint, deliberate rustle echoed through the forest, barely audible but enough to set his nerves on edge. The shadows seemed to shift around him.
It's really dry and it'll actually catch. For a second I thought somebody was like literally walking behind me. That was creepy. It sounded like footsteps.
A strange sound sliced through the stillness of the forest, hauntingly familiar. He was terrified and straining to place it. He could have sworn he'd heard it before, distant yet impossible to ignore. The woods had fallen eerily silent, amplifying every whisper of movement. Names were called into the darkness, unanswered, only heightening the sense that someone, or something, was lurking just beyond sight. Then it came again, sharper this time. A piercing, whistle-like tone that echoed through the trees, unmistakably real, undeniably close, and utterly unexplainable.
Okay, I swear I just heard that again. It sounded closer this time. What? Dude, that literally sounds like that whistle thing. Mayan whistle or whatever? That is legit like probably the third time I've heard that out here. Why?
He shook his head, trying to make sense of it, but nothing did. This was exactly what he had feared, yet never fully believed. Then it came again, that strange scoffing sound, low and deliberate, cutting through the stillness. He had heard it here before, but never like this. What was it? What did it mean? His mind raced, but no answer came. Only the unsettling certainty that something unseen was watching, waiting, and enjoying every moment of his confusion.
Exactly what I'm friggin' talking about. Like, it doesn't even make sense. Okay. What was that? Dude, that was a weird scoffing noise again. I've heard that here before. What does that? I don't even understand.
A sudden, unidentifiable sound tore through the silence, sharp enough to make Angelo's blood run cold. For a moment, the forest itself seemed to shrink around him, shadows deepening, moving as if alive. Something unseen lingered just beyond the firelight, close enough to feel, yet impossibly hidden. Every instinct screamed danger, and the woods whispered back in a language only fear could understand.
Okay, that got a little close. What was that? What is that?
The sound stopped Angelo in his tracks. A low, snarling noise had come from so close, it felt like it was breathing right beside him. He'd heard it before on past visits, and every time it sent the same wave of fear through his body. Startled, he moved too fast, nearly losing his balance as adrenaline took over. Then the forest answered again, a sharp, whistling call drifting through the trees. This time, it felt deliberate. Someone or something was out there. And the deeper the silence grew, the clearer it became that he was no longer alone. The question of what lurked in the shadows of the satanic cult ritual forest remains unanswered. But one thing is certain, Angelo came face to face with a presence that watches these woods, and he has no intention of returning to disturb it again. On Small Town Monsters, investigators explore tales that start ordinary and spiral into the unexplainable. Chris Spencer and his son camped alone at Skamania County Campground during spring break. By day, they found twisted maple vines, broken branches, and a massive impression in the ground.
First people in, and only people in the campground, and we found a vine maple that was limb twist broke, an 18 by 9 inch impression in the ground. We found other branches snapped off of fir trees 12 feet up. And that night, and we thought, oh, cool, you know, didn't think.
But that night, terror struck. Something entered their campsite and forcefully grabbed their tent. What happened remains a mystery, leaving them with a chilling story no one can fully explain. Alone in the night, Chris heard movement circling the campground, two unseen presences testing him while his children slept.
Was in the campground, there's at least two moving back and forth around the camp. I think they were just messing with us, but around 4 in the morning, wow, it was like a rock on a tree, knock, everything went quiet. I got out of the tent and built up a fire and waited for my kid to get up. After that, that's when I decided to start doing stuff like that.
Frozen inside the tent, weapon across his chest, he couldn't move. A sharp knock rang through the trees, then silence. When he finally emerged, he built a fire and waited. That night changed everything. Chris knew he had to find answers. John Sheridan, a seasoned investigator, has spent years listening to those who've encountered the unexplained. Some describe distant figures, calm and almost harmless, as if the forest itself is watching.
It's a difficult question because it depends. You know, I've heard so many different encounters and I've talked to so many different people. There's some things that really stand out. That you've seen, you know, they've seen a figure in the distance, right? Or it seemed friendly, and they didn't seem like it was aggressive or there was any concern. They didn't have any fear, no feeling of dread or anything like that. But then there's some times where they're being pelted with rocks.
Others share darker tales. Rocks thrown from nowhere, invisible forces stalking them, or strange disturbances at home. For Sheridan, each story unveils a hidden world where moments of calm can suddenly turn into chilling menace. Chris Brinker, known for investigating the unexplained, often hears stories from people who never thought they'd have one to share. Anyone spending time in these woods seems to have at least one tale worth telling. Even longtime friends now come forward with experiences they kept secret.
I'm usually, because when I first started, I had to really learn all the other animals too, so I listened while I looked, but most of the target subject vocalizations, they fall in a certain hertz range, and a lot of times they'll look similar to human vocalizations, and so I look at a narrow hertz range, and when I see something that doesn't match up with the known animals, then I stop and I look at it, because I look at it visually just like David does, and it's something over time. I've been doing it since 2015. It's 2021 now.
One recalled parking with a girl when two glowing red eyes stared from the trees, vanishing as mysteriously as they appeared.
I've had multiple friends at work, you know, talk about different situations. It seems like
You know, anybody that spends any time in the woods around here has an experience, at least one, that they talk about. People that, you know, you never would have thought, and you know, you mentioned it, now that I do the investigating and they know that I do that, some people come forward and be like, oh yeah, I have something that happened to me that I never told anybody about. I had a friend who was out parking with a girl and had two red eyes that he caught staring at him from in the trees that just disappeared, you know.
For Brinker, these moments show just how thin the line is between ordinary and the inexplicable. As night fell, Rebecca Slick and her group settled into sleeping bags, chatter fading. Suddenly, a tree crashed down. It wasn't just a simple camping trip anymore. With no wind to explain the fall, Rebecca realized something unnatural might be nearby.
We're all in our sleeping bags, and all of a sudden the chatter of us starting to die down to go to bed is broken by this tree fall. That changed the game because it went from just, okay, we're gonna just be out here camping, to, oh my goodness, there's no wind. It's possible that this could be natural.
In an instant, a peaceful night in the woods became unsettling, a possible creature lurking just beyond sight. Jody Fiorganes recounted the terrifying experience his mother endured, a presence more than a shape, massive and dark, filling the space around her vehicle. It struck suddenly, a violent impact on the front of the car, a jolt along the side, and a force that touched her hair, snapping her head back.
You have others that we think of as being very passive, but as to what's creating those situations, what's causing those reports to manifest in the way they do, I don't know that there's any conclusive answer to that, at least at this point. We do tend to see, at least in most places, that sightings spike during the times of the year that people are outdoors, which makes sense. But as far as what time of the year, what location, what climate, if that makes them more aggressive, less aggressive, you do hear quite a few stories coming out of Florida, the skunk ape, sometimes Louisiana, the Honey Island area.
The smell alone suggested it was no ordinary animal. Even without a clear view, its closeness made it undeniable. She had come face to face with something extraordinary. His mother wasn't afraid. She believed the contact wasn't an attack, just curiosity. That single mysterious touch sparked a question haunting Jody.
Just given the behaviors and the things we're talking about, they seem to be pretty consistent and they're reported. You know, Ape Canyon, if we are to believe the story of the miners, that was done as a sort of aggressive response to being shot at, or you know, there was a curiosity factor with if the cabin was actually there. When the cabin was built, there seemed to be encounters with these creatures and the miners started shooting at them. And if we're to believe that story, maybe that tells us that they were curious, you know, what are people doing in this really hard to reach place? And then it turned into aggressive behavior. So that was, I think, situational again.
What was out there? Watching, testing, trying to understand them. For him, proving her right became more than theory. It became a challenge to confront the unknown. The question of what truly lurks in these forests, mountains, and islands remains unanswered. 6 investigators, 6 encounters, and a chilling reminder. Some legends are closer than we dare to imagine. If you think you've heard it all, think again. Which story gave you chills the most? Comment below.